welcome to Your Choice 2020 primary election coverage on HOMTV. I'm Brandy Yates, and joining me for this candidate interview is Mike Kieliszewski, Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. Thank you so much, Mike, for joining me. And at this time, you can give an introduction to our viewing audience.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Kieliszewski. I'm a Meridian Township resident who has lived in the area for my entire life. I'm very familiar with the area and the history behind Meridian Township, and I am seeking election for Township Trustee. I feel like Meridian Township has been doing some good things, but there's also some room for improvement, and I would like to help do what I can to make sure we have the best community for everyone in our neighborhoods and in Meridian Township in general.
Thank you. Each Meridian Township Trustee candidate will be asked a standard list of 12 questions, and we will get ready with question number 1. Explain how your education and professional background make you an ideal candidate for Township Trustee.
Well, my educational background is basically STEM, so science, technology, engineering, mathematics. I went through Okemos schools. I graduated from Okemos High School, so I'm pretty familiar with the school systems in our area, and they're very good. In my education, I've basically was heavy emphasis on data-driven reports and results-oriented type of work. A large part of what I've been doing with my education is problem solving is a big part of the education that I got. So, for instance, just today I was having issues with the background in this Zoom meeting, and we found a solution that worked for us and solved the problem. But in any case, that sort of stuff is something that has come up quite a bit in my educational background. Problem solving was a huge part of it, and we have a COVID-19 problem that needs some solution. So that's part of my educational background, and I've also basically done a lot of computer work. So computer science is my major focus, but I've also taken a lot of courses in chemistry, physics, that sort of stuff. In terms of professional background, I've applied my education to be an information technology professional, so computer nerd, essentially. A large part of my work right now is at MSU. I'm a learning systems administrator there. And that work there is very collaborative, which I think is also a benefit for someone who wants to help represent the community. Getting input and buy-in from the community is important. And getting perspectives that you may not have considered is also key. So that, there's been several times in my professional experience where if I hadn't asked around to find out what was going on, there would have been key issues that I had missed that could have resulted in disaster. So that's another part of where I come from, is collaboration with people that that know more than I do. And I think knowing your limits, knowing when you don't know something and when to seek help from a trusted source is critical as well. And being able to admit that, hey, I don't have the answer, but I can seek knowledge that will get me to where I need to go to find that answer is also important. So that's my educational and professional background, essentially. Science-oriented, data-driven, and fact-focused, and a problem solver. That's mainly what I would consider myself in terms of professional right now.
Question number 2. What do you believe are the needs of the community, and explain how you plan to meet those needs or expand upon those needs?
Well, our community members need to feel safe, first of all. They need to feel included in what is going on in their community. they need to be educated about what is going on, what decisions are being made, what challenges are being made. But really, I think the main need right now is a plan for our COVID-19 situation. I mean, it's not just our township. I get that. We're all in this together, and that's something that we have to recognize. But we also need to have a plan that makes sense and that we can relay to our citizens that gives them an idea of what to expect. The uncertainty right now is it's very anxiety inducing and no one knows what to expect. My personal feeling is I get the sense we don't have very much leadership from the federal government telling us, what we can expect going forward. And it's up to our local and state governments to pick that up and come up with a plan that makes sense for our community and is based on facts and data.
Question number 3. How would you prioritize the use of township general funds, especially in the current economic climate and uncertainties surrounding COVID-19?
Well, we need to ensure that our critical infrastructure and critical services remain functional and functioning in a way that is safe for the folks who actually have to do the work. For example, I think it's a little bit telling that a lot of our key services, for instance, grocery store workers and, trash pickup, water and sewer workers, that sort of stuff, they're kind of on the front lines in this whole situation where they're required to be to work. And don't get me wrong, we need our water and our electricity and our trash picked up. And I agree that they are critical workers, but I think our community and our society as a whole needs to recognize that their value is much more than maybe what we've assigned to them. Making our community go is got to be priority one, and doing that in a safe and responsible manner.
Question number 4. Please explain your thoughts on the business climate and future developments in Meridian Township.
I feel like development in recent history has been more focused and led by development and industry interests rather than community and neighborhood interests. Land use is a big issue. We need to figure out how to make best use of the resources, including our land that we have available to us. But I have some concerns about, for instance, high density developments. I have concerns about pilot programs, that is payment in lieu of taxes for development. I don't think that that's the best deal for our community. If developers want to be part of our community, great, please come in, but you need to you're going to be expected to pay your fair share. Being excused from taxes is not something that is going to help our community. And I think it's kind of going to get even worse in this situation where we have now, where if we want to do high density mixed use rental type of stuff, is that going to be students? Is it going to be people who are not necessarily invested in the community for the long term? What's that going to look like? People in the community need to have input, and I feel like the process needs to be more steered by community involvement rather than business interests. And that I feel like business interests have been dictating how development should proceed in our community for they have more influence than I believe is required for development to be successful, and community input is required. I think it's being disregarded more than it's being listened to.
Question number 5. What major changes do you believe township residents would like to see in the near future?
Well, I definitely think my neighbors would like to see less high density development. For example, the situation in downtown East Lansing with the huge high rises now. I've talked to business owners in that corridor, and a lot of them are not. COVID-19 is going on, so that's affecting their business. But also, the buildings block out the sun and stuff like that. Like the patio on LS, that's kind of wrecked now because of this development, and I'm not sure that was taken into consideration when that was put into place. And I understand that's not Meridian Township, but that's the sort of thing I want to avoid in our community. Another sort of thing that, as I mentioned before, I think being less beholden to corporate and industry interests is a good thing. And this didn't happen in Meridian Township, but for example, there was a situation where the government basically capitulated to Jackson National Life needs to redo the 96 interchange over on Okemos Road. So that was redone at the behest of Jackson National Life. And shortly thereafter, they laid off 500 people. I mean, that's not the sort of business relationship that I want in my community. So that sort of thing. And then taking that one step further, I mean, there's a Woder Cooper development going on in the Wardcliff neighborhood, and that is been granted a pilot program, payment in lieu of taxes. My understanding is that the developer is paying $10,000 a year in property taxes, or rather making a payment of $10,000 a year rather than paying property taxes. And the revenue from property taxes would be significantly more than that $10,000 a year. I think it's a bad deal for our citizens and our taxpayers that we're subsidizing private industry through that program. And if private industry can't make it on its own, then perhaps the business model that they're using needs to be reevaluated.
Question number 6. What steps do you believe the township should take to enhance diversity within the workforce to effectively represent the diverse makeup of the community?
Well, I'm obviously a white guy, so I have not suffered much at the hands of prejudice and racism and that sort of thing. What I do know is that I don't have much experience with it, and that I would need input from community leaders from those groups to inform what we can do as a community to make their quality of life better. Because I mean, I haven't had to deal with systemic racism or discrimination, and we need input from folks who know what that feels like and know what can be done to help alleviate that. And I just don't have that knowledge. I need to collaborate with people who do to make that sort of decision and get some ideas on what we can do. I mean, off the top of my head, sure, we can hire more minorities into our municipal employee, municipal jobs, but I'm not sure that that's what those community needs. If it is, great, let's do it. But I feel like there's more systemic things that can be done, and I feel like the input from minority communities is going to be key in making those decisions. And we need some sort of coalition or some sort of group of essentially minority folks telling us how we can do better.
Question number 7. What are your thoughts on how the township has handled environmental concerns?
I think the township has done a quite good job on environmental concerns. I know that they're considering banning coal tar sealant for driveways, and I think that's a great idea. Long story short, I think Meridian Township has a priority placed on preserving green space and the environment in general. With that being said, I think there are improvements that can be made. I think that there could be some cleanup done in the Red Cedar, specifically around the downtown Okemos area. There's areas there where it smells kind of like sewage. Again, in general, we're doing great. There's just a couple areas where I think improvements could be made. I think maybe expanding on the interurban pathway would be a good idea, promoting a little bit more alternative transport as far as like bicycles, scooters, that sort of thing. And even extending the interurban pathway to connect to the Lansing River Trail would be a great idea too. That's more of an infrastructure type of thing, but it's also that sort of exposure to the environment, I think, helps raise awareness among citizens of what Meridian Township has to offer and why we should be taking pains to try and preserve the green space and the environment that we have.
Question number 8, please address the condition of Meridian Township's infrastructure.
Okay, well, there's some issues. I guess the first thing that comes to mind is the sidewalk on Grand River in between Okemos Road and Park Lake. That is pretty deteriorated. I understand that there was some uncertainty about the BART and if that would, tear that up so that any reconstruction would be pointless anyway, but it turns out the BART didn't go through. And so that sidewalk should be fixed, I think. It's on a main corridor, it looks bad, and it's really the only footpath from the west side of Okemos, along the main corridor anyway, to the east side. So that should be fixed. I think that we would do well to explore solar and wind development. There have been, I think, great improvements in that stuff. I know we are having that solar garden, and I'm totally thrilled about that. I think we should be looking into more of those sort of projects. Solar energy, once you pay for the infrastructure, the power generation is basically free. You have to maintain them and whatnot, but it's green. It's essentially free power once you put in the infrastructure to make it happen. And I think that sort of thing is great. It's something we should explore more fully. I think that single family housing is something that needs to be put on more of a priority here. My feeling in my neighborhood is that a lot of the housing has become rentals for mostly students, which is fine. So we need students help drive the economy, the local economy, and I get that, and that's important. But I also think that maybe the housing codes in Meridian Township, specifically on the border of East Lansing, are a little bit more lax, which provides incentive for people to rent out their houses once they moved on, rent out the house that they were going to sell. And what ends up happening is we get folks who they're not bad neighbors, but they're just not invested in the community in the way that people who are living here for the long term are. So I think promoting single family housing, maybe duplexes, renter or owner occupied duplexes would be another way to go. Just stuff that promotes development, that promotes people staying in the community and being invested with their neighbors, and less of a willingness to, allow slumlord type of stuff. Going even one step beyond that, one other thing that I've noticed that needs work is the railroad crossing at Hagedorn, right near Service Road. I think that has been, quite frankly, dangerous and potentially lethal to motorcyclists for quite some time. My understanding is that is going to get fixed soon, but it seems like it's taken too long, and I don't know what leverage the township has to make those repairs happen. But that's something that we need to explore as well, is for situations where maybe the township isn't responsible for the infrastructure, but it is in our umbrella of our footprint. We need to take steps to apply the leverage that we can to get that stuff fixed.
Question number 9. Explain the role new technologies and innovations can play in Meridian Township.
Well, this is a good one for me. I'm an IT guy, and I guess I would say that most of these technologies are not necessarily new, but they're just becoming more used. But you know that. Sorry, I'm nerding out. In any case, Zoom is huge. Zoom is a big deal. I mean, we're doing this interview over Zoom. Classes are being handled over Zoom. So this is going to be how we're going to be interacting in the future to a large degree, is teleconferencing and phone calls, that sort of, not in person. And I think community outreach. Hey, who wants to learn how to use Zoom? I think that would be a great way to go. And to build on that, I think that we're beginning to see that internet is a need now. It's not a luxury anymore. It needs to be treated like a public utility. I understand that's more of a federal thing, but I think there's steps we can take within our community to provide reliable high-speed internet to our citizens. In rural areas, it's just, in rural areas, you may not be able to get internet, at least not reliable internet. And in this COVID-19 situation, that's really problematic for educators who are trying to reach their students. Anyone who just wants to communicate with their loved ones or their family, or a doctor visit, that sort of stuff. So I think Zoom is going to be huge, and other platforms like that. And I think we need to provide some sort of support for folks who are struggling with how to make that work. It's not easy, and you're vulnerable. You put yourself on the internet, and you're just, hey, I hope I'm doing it right. And it's here to stay. And I think folks would be well served having some sort of support structure to make their lives easier in terms of just being able to communicate with each other. And going along with that, the internet as a public utility, like I said, we're beginning to see with all the working from home and stuff like that, that it's a requirement now. You can't, internet is not a luxury. It's not. I'm fortunate that I am able to work from home and I have internet, but I know there are members of our community who don't have that luxury. Typically the solution was, we'll go to the library and use their computers. Well, that's not really an option now either, not without risking your health potentially. So I think that is really hitting some marginalized communities very hard. And the fact is, you have to pay for internet and a device, and that is a large barrier to entry for certain segments of our population. If you have to pay money to be able to participate in our society, and that's just not a possibility for you, well, then that needs to change.
Okay, we have 3 questions remaining in about 5 minutes. So I want to try to get through all 3 of these.
Sure, I will try and be quick. Thank you. Thank you for the heads up.
Statement as well. So moving on to question 10. What do you consider to be the top 2 challenges facing Meridian Township?
Well, I think there's really just one, and it's managing COVID and making our community work in this situation. It's going to take healthcare, law enforcement. These are all legs of the same table, and we all need to work together to come up with solutions that are good for our community. And I'm not going to pretend that I have a solution right now that we can say go and do it and everything is going to be great, because I don't. And anyone who says they do, I would have trouble believing them. But it's a huge challenge, and it's on everybody's mind. We need to be sure our citizens feel safe and that they know that there's a plan going forward that will accommodate their needs and the needs of the community as a whole.
Question number 11. What goals would you like to see the township accomplish in the next 5 years?
The next 5 years, well, I'd like to see a responsible and safe return to normalcy, whatever that looks like. Who knows what that's going to be. It's going to be heavily, handshakes are probably going away. Zoom is going to be a big part of our lives. The internet is going to be a big part of our lives. So I guess without getting into too many specifics, the next 5 years are going to be a challenge with regards to just getting adjusted to whatever the new normal is going to be. And who knows what that will hold. I'm hoping that treatment or vaccines will inform those decisions. But until then, we just we just have to take it as it comes, roll with the punches, and make decisions that are data-driven, fact-driven, and that work for our communities.
Question number 12, and our final question. What inspired you to run for township trustee position?
I think mostly I'm in a position where I'm fairly comfortable with my job, with my life. I wanted to be able to do more for the community. And this is my attempt at doing that. I really like our neighbors. I really like our community. I really like Meridian Township, and I want to help preserve the good things we have and maybe make improvements where we can.
Okay, we are done with the standard list of questions. With a few minutes remaining, we'd like to give you this time to make a closing statement, a brief closing statement.
Yes, I would. Thank you very much. And thank you again for the time heads up. Again, my name is Mike Kieliszewski. I am asking for your vote for Meridian Township Trustee in 2020 for a citizen-focused and fact-driven take on how local government should be run. And even if you don't vote for me, please do your best to vote and get your voice heard. That is important. We can't make change without your voice, and we need all of our citizens' input to make the best decisions for our community. So again, my name is Michael Kieliszewski, asking you for your vote for a citizen-focused, fact-driven approach to local government.
Thank you, and thank you for watching this candidate interview with Mike Kieliszewski, Democratic candidate for Meridian Township Trustee. I'm Brandy Yates, inviting you to also watch live primary election night coverage on Tuesday, August 4th, right here on HOMTV. Thank you for watching.